Deputy Gerald Nash.
Minister, like most members of the House, I welcome the announcement in December of the new Momentum programme, which will provide 6,500 new education and training places for job seekers. These places are correctly and specifically targeted at the long-term unemployed. Projects will be in the expanding employment areas of ICT, digital media, healthcare and social services, the green economy, food processing and sales and marketing, and I'm pleased that a substantial number of these opportunities will be provided in my own constituency of Louth. Importantly, these programmes are designed to match the needs of employers and provide those who are out of work for a long time with a golden opportunity to optimise their chances of getting back into the workplace. Applicants, as you know, Minister, must be signing on for 12 months or longer and actively seeking employment. Now, I've looked at the eligibility criteria laid down by the Department because I was recently made aware of a case where a man whose mother passed away recently was told he was ineligible to apply for a place in the Momentum programme as he'd only been signing on for 6 months. Prior to that, he had spent 2 years acting as a carer to his mother, recognised by the state by way of a carer's payment. Minister, every other labour activation scheme to date has allowed applicants to count time spent as a carer in lieu of time signing on in terms of the consideration for training. The Momentum programme is the first to break with that precedent. But this seems to have been a policy decision taken within the Department that creates, I think, a very dangerous and very divisive principle. There's much discussion and debate about the significant state support that we provide for carers, but we don't seem to be too concerned about what happens to carers in their bid to get back into the workforce when their caring duties come to an end, often in sad circumstances. No state jobs or training programme should be allowed to discriminate against a citizen who, through their family obligations and their love for their family members, were in a situation whereby they had to take time out of the workforce to care for an unwell relative. It seems to me to be inherently unfair that someone should be penalised for leaving the workforce to care for a loved one and then be forced to sit in the live register for 12 months before being allowed access to the Momentum programme. I am anxious to establish, if the Minister and the Department of Social Protection will take steps to reverse this, as I say, divisive and arguably discriminatory policy decision and bring the Momentum programme into line with other labour market activation schemes which allow time spent on carers allowance to count in terms of access to the suite of labour market activation and training measures that are provided by government.
Thank you. Deputy, I call on the Minister to reply.
As you heard, in the programme for government, apply for Deputy Nash, an undertaking was given to introduce a more focused approach on how the state engages with and with support the unemployed to get back into the workforce. Pathways to Work, the government policy statement on labour market activation, sets out the government intends to do this as a key element of the government's strategy to get Ireland working again. Pathways to Work has 5 strands: more regular, ongoing engagement with people who are unemployed, greater targeting of activation places and opportunities, incentivizing the take-up of opportunities, and incentivizing employers to provide more jobs for people who are unemployed, and reforming institutions to deliver better services to people who are unemployed. Implementation of these 5 strands will ensure that people who are unemployed will be given the opportunity to acquire suitable skills and/or qualifications. The second strand commits to greater targeting of activation places and opportunities. Given limited public resources, it is essential that activation measures are targeted. The long-term unemployed, in particular, must be focused for interventions. The Momentum, which I referred to, initiatives provides free education and training projects for 6,500 long-term unemployed job seekers. The programme will include on-the-job training in the form of work experience modules, as well as the development of the workplace skills required to obtain and retain employment. The initiative is administered by FOSS and funded by the Department of Education and Skills through the European Social Fund, DSFF. It's supported Labour Markets Education and Training Fund, the LMETF. In line with the commitments given in Pathways to Work, eligibility for the Momentum initiative is targeted in the long-term unemployed, and a participant must meet the following criteria: be unemployed on the live register for 12 months, 312 days or longer and be in receipt of job seekers allowance benefit from the Department of Social Protection or credited contributions for 12 months or longer and be actively seeking work. However, a person who was unemployed for 12 months in the previous 18 months may be considered eligible for the initiative. Therefore, a person who was engaged in a temporary or seasonal work or who was temporarily in receipt of a carer's payment but was otherwise on the live register during the 18-month period may qualify, which I think may satisfy some of your concerns there. Periods spent on other activation schemes, for example, the Back to Education Allowance, Community Employment Scheme, the TUS, may count towards meeting the eligibility requirement for Momentum, provided the person has completed the scheme programme and is on the live register. So access to Momentum courses is strictly through referral from the department. Case officers must determine suitability and agree the most suitable course for a person to progress to the pathways to employment. While a general receipt of carers allowance does not satisfy the criteria for this initiative, there is a wide range of other activation supports available to those in receipt of carers payment. It should also be noted that the Momentum initiative only represents a small percentage of the over 450,000 state-funded places provided in further education, higher education and training, namely 75,000 FOSS training places in 2012, 180,000 further education places, 162,000 full-time higher education places through universities, institutes of technology across the country. In conclusion, over 40,000 training places, including 8,000 for the unemployed in partnership with private employers, over 6,000 springboard free part-time higher education places in 2012, with additional places to be announced this year. In line with the Pathways to Work commitment, the long-term unemployed are a particular focus for interventions, and the Momentum initiative is therefore exclusively targeted at this cohort.
Thank you, Minister. Deputy Nash has a further 2 minutes.
Thank you very much, Cathaoirleach. Not necessarily consoled by what the Minister says in relation to the treatment of those who have had to do caring duties for a considerable period of time in this case, and then find that in fact they're not treated the same way as other people who might be considered to be long-term unemployed technically from the point of view of the Momentum scheme. I mean, Momentum does create, I think, a gilt-edged opportunity for many people who are long-term unemployed to access the labour market and get genuine opportunities for jobs that are actually out there. And it's important, of course, that we target that. And you're quite correct, Minister, it is only appropriate that the long-term unemployed are specifically targeted, and that is the focus of Pathways to Work. But there is an imbalance here in the system, and what I want to point out is the dangerous precedent I think that is inherent in this particular policy decision to exclude some people who've been on carers for a long period of time and not to consider them to be essentially on the live register for, say, 12 months in this particular case. I accept that there are complexities around this. I fear that there may be hundreds of people in these circumstances. That's my point. It's a point of principle that I don't think we can move away from. I don't want to put this kind of a line in the sand in relation to treating carers differently to other social welfare recipients, and I think the government needs to be very, very conscious of that. We're all as well conscious that there are about 450,000 state-funded training places, and obviously a specific targeting towards those who are long-term unemployed. But I think we need to look at the definition of long-term unemployed in the context of this particular programme, and we need to be conscious and recognise, I think, the function that our carers play in society, and when that function comes to an end, as I say often in tragic and difficult circumstances, that they should be fast-tracked into training schemes if that is what they wish to do, and fast-tracked into employment to ensure that we, I suppose, recognise the role that they play in our society, and when the caring duties end, that they do have optimum opportunities to train and to access gainful employment, which is important as well for carers who sometimes find it difficult maybe to adapt when the caring function and the caring role concludes, having been some time out of the direct labour force.
Thank you, Deputy. The Minister to conclude.
Just to assure Deputy Nash that Minister Burton will take certainly your concerns to the Minister Burton, because I think what you're saying is a very important point. But I'd just like, for the record, to say that some flexibility already exists within the initiative, whereby a person who was engaged in a temporarily in receipt of carers payment, but was otherwise on the live register for the previous 18 months, may be considered for the Momentum initiative. I think there's a certain discretion there, and the focus of the initiative must remain the long-term unemployed, regardless of the cost of the extension to other groups. And finally, with regards to the Momentum initiative is specifically targeted at the long-term unemployed, which is very important, and as committed in the pathways to work. And the extension of the initiative to those who are not long-term will be counter to the objectives of the programme. But likewise, carers allowance is payable to customers who are caring for a person on a full-time basis. Carers cannot be employed or self-employed outside the home for more than 15 hours per week. However, recipients of carers payment may participate in a range of part-time training or education programmes, provided it does not conflict with their commitment to their caring duties. For carers who wish to retrain or in anticipation of seeking employment when the caring duties cease, there is a range of training and education places and supports available, and the Department of Education provides 75,000 training places through FOSS, with delivery during the day, evening, online, and blended combined online and workshops. And part-time courses are also available through the VEC under the Back to Education initiative. Some of these courses would be available to carers, while others are accessible for people previously engaged in caring. And carers are also eligible for grant-aided accredited training through the Department Technical Employment Support Grant Fund.
Thank you, Minister.